Good morning. Today I would like to present to your attention a very fascinating object which has come to my attention. I would like to fully document this and present it to you. Now, this is one of the reasons why this channel exists. A subscriber, follower to my channel, submitted several pictures of an object that he possesses, and I would like to thank Kevin for sharing this information. But this is a very fascinating object, and it is very mysterious. Indeed, I am at a loss to determine from whose hand this came. Now, there are several very evident possibilities. So it is very difficult to locate the exact maker in this case. This piece is signed Montandon Fecit. In Latin, fecit is was made by. And so normally we see this formulation, we first saw it applied in watchmaking around 1669 or 1675, around in this area. And this was in the formula of invetit et fecit. And for example, hook invetit, and then tompion fecit. So this was a hairspring which was invented by Hook and made by Tompion. And this formula is in general very sought after or applicable, how should one say, in cases where we are dealing with higher forms of watchmaking. This is a very elite application. This maker indeed was making for the King of England at this time, and we will see this formula applied during the rest of the 17th century, during the 18th century. It more or less disappears, and this particular object, we find this is dating to circa the mid-19th century. This has to be dating between 1858 till no later than 1870. And this dating gives us clues to the maker behind it. This limits our scope of field and gives us a lot of possibilities. But I should also say that this formulaic Latin phrase in watchmaking, this invetit et fecit, was used, for example, by various other individuals such as Abraham Louis Breguet, but also Jean-Antoine Lépine. And these were using this formulaic writing involved in watchmaking right up until 1800. But they were very elite French-Swiss watchmakers, and it's very probable that this signing fecit on the dial would have been hearkening back to this high quality of watchmaking, this haute horlogerie, which we are speaking about here. So we have this watch. It is number 3004, and it is signed Montandon Fecit, and there is no location ascribed to this whatsoever. If we are to look specifically at the serial number, this certainly indicates a smaller maker and a very competent one too. Now, I would like to suggest to you the following four possibilities, because these are probably the most probable behind the provenance of this watch. I also would like to mention that the provenance of the item itself, that this watch was acquired approximately 30 years ago for the price of $30 in England. Now, the fact that this materialized in England may be a clue to the maker. This may have been made for the English market, and indeed we do see this invetit et fecit terminology applied beginning in England, so this may have been something to do with the English market. Now, let us discuss the possible watch fabricator behind this object. Now, we of course have Hugh Montandon of St. Croix. This is Charles Eulis Montandon of St. Croix, and he lived between 1814 and 1890. He established this watchmaking business around 1840, and he was certainly active during this late 1850s, early to mid 1860s. So that he does definitely remain a possibility. Now, he was probably signing Montandon in Geneva. He would later be working in a partnership with Jacquard, Samuel Jacquard, and I believe his son was working, this Eulis Edouard. These individuals were probably signing Geneva, because we do know that Jacquard and Montandon watches are signed Geneva, and we do have watches, Montandon Geneva watches, in the serial range. There are very few. They are dating to this period, and these are probably ascribed to him. So he remains a distinct possibility, and I will show the serial numbers of these Montandon Genevas here. Now, moving on to the next individual. Once again, we are just beyond mid-19th century, and this is another mountain watchmaker, and this was an établisseur in Travers, and this is Alphonse Montandon, and he was living between 1820 and 1895, and his watch serialization is precisely here. We find his watches, and I will provide the serials. Now, of course, when we have serials of this low nature, this could be, of course, anyone, but these are tending to be very high. When we have these small numbers, this is a very tight fabrication. These are watchmakers who are on the smaller side and probably on the high quality side, but once again, we have this clearly the watch itself. We can see the movement. This is a plated movement. This goes over and beyond the lower echelons of watch fabrication. This is a more exclusive watch fabricator, to be sure. So it is possible that this is Alphonse Montandon. I should mention that the house of Hugh Montandon of St. Croix, they actually had a series of watch distributors across Central Europe, and we do find this Fecit term applied in Germany and Austria as well. But they were, this Hugh Montandon of St. Croix were operating watch distribution in Amsterdam, Frankfurt, Leipzig, and I believe Berlin. So, but it's not exactly clear on the English market. However, it is probable, certainly later, this Hugh Montandon was supplying telemeters, and I do believe that these eventually ended up in England. And this would have been the late 1880s already, so it's not exactly clear if they were supplying the English market several decades prior to this, but it remains a possibility. It is plausible. But Alphonse Montandon, he certainly has at least one complex watch and with multiple features, and this certainly remains a possibility. Now, most of his watches were gold, but he does have at least 2 proved silver pieces with his signings. Yet it is unclear. This is a mystery, which makes it fascinating in my mind. Now, I would like to move on to another mountain watchmaker, and this was a small maker who was recognized in 1857, 1858 at the Bern exposition in Switzerland. And this is Samuel Henry Montandon, and he lived between 1822 and 1872. Now, he went by the name of Henri Montandon of Les Ponts. He was from Les Ponts de Martel. And he had a lot of sons, all of whom went into the watchmaking industry, and they were various specialists. But Henri himself was a horloger en montre compliquée. So he was a watch fabricator, manufacturer of complicated watches. And this makes his candidates are very interesting. Henry himself was a top marksman and sharpshooter, and he was participating in all of the local, cantonal, and federal shooting matches, these tiers cantonaux et fédéraux. And so he was a very precise individual. His watch arts were extremely polished. There are 3 watches that were mentioned by his fabrication. They were all gold. They were all in the 800s serialization. And these gold watches were pointed out at Bern, so we do know this about him. So it's not a far stretch that this 3000 would have been one of his watches, and indeed, he certainly remains a high possible contender for this. It's not exactly clear where his watches were going, and indeed how they were signed. But certainly, this could be one of his. He's a high contender for this possible watch fabricator. Now, there also is a 4th possibility, and this is that this maker would have been one of the original founders behind the firm of Montandon Fecit of Locle that was working independently. Now, if this is the case, we are speaking of one of these individuals, either James, but James seems to have dropped out of watch fabrication but after 1850, 1851. There was Eulis, who certainly was associated with Montandon Fecit, but then during the 1850s seems to have gone independently, and he died before or during the mid-1860s, 1866, I believe. By, I think, 1865, he was probably already departing the watch scene. But he certainly would have been a contender to this. And there is also Jules Montandon, who was associated with Montandon Fecit and was a very close cousin of theirs. That this certainly could be a Jules Montandon. And Jules was also, we see the name Jules Montandon behind complex pieces. These are chronometers, chronographs, and this variety. So, and this would have been Jules Frederick. So, and certainly he was, we see a lot of these Jules Montandon complex pieces. So certainly at this very specific time, so certainly he also is a contender. But we do have this fascinating piece. It is interesting that it manifested itself in England, and I just wanted to share this mystery and to discuss these possible watch fabricators, because this is the only known piece signed Montandon Fecit, and this is a unique piece. This is certainly the only one I've ever seen, and there are a lack of ponçons inside, which one would think, if this was associated directly with Montandon Fecit, that their ponçon would be applied here. And certainly by 1860s, we are seeing that they are putting some sort of a maker's marking in there. They did have their own marks associated with their fabrication. And they, indeed, Montandon Fecit themselves would actually have, in England, by the mid-1860s, they would have a sales point in London, and this was demonstrated on a watch signed Montandon Brothers, London, and the address of their establishment. And this was a allied family member, the husband of one of Charles Adolphe's daughters, Charles Adolphe Montandon. Blaise Leon was running the Montandon Fecit Locle establishment at this time. And this was Louis Mittendorf, who was operating in London and selling musical boxes, watches, and various different imported items from Switzerland. But this is just this short discussion of this incredible piece. It's wondrous. It's a mystery. I would like to find anyone who has any kind of feedback that could be useful towards identifying this, but I do feel that we have identified the most probable individuals behind this object. This probably is a very small elite maker, and that's why I do have a feeling this does relate to these mountain makers who were very successful in their arts. But this was just a short introduction to this Montandon Fecit piece. I would like to thank Kevin once again for sharing this object. This is one of the reasons why this channel exists, to exhibit, document, and share this wonderful history. This is a brand of a small family of Swiss and French watchmakers. They all share the same lineage, a single common ancestor. They're all interrelated, they're all cousins. And so this very small family of watchmakers who are working under this établissage system, a uniquely Swiss invention of more or less a technology transfer of these watch arts from generation to generation that is very fascinating. I don't think it's been documented to this level on any of the other brands. Indeed, generally, we know only watch history of the larger brands, these Breguets and Nardins, etc. So it's very important to document these smaller brands and their contributions to the study of time are no less important. Indeed, they are the glue, the fabric that was helping to manifest this Swiss wonder, which was the #1 world exporter of watches. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for your interest, and I would like to wish you a very nice day. Bye-bye.